Has Jacob Rees-Mogg finally realised that the game is up for him?
You're joking. Not another one?
I'm Jake from Just Jake. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, do not forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video and watch the video to the end, because why not? I'm a nice guy and I love everyone that subscribes to my channel. So today we're going to be talking about Jacob Rees-Mogg, his seat, the possibility of him losing his seat, and the fact that the penny might finally be dropping for Jacob Rees-Mogg about the possibility of him losing his seat, a concept not thought possible to Jacob Rees-Mogg up until this time, and a concept not really realistic to a lot of Conservative MPs at the start of this parliamentary term, as they've gone from having a huge majority to it dwindling, and to then possibly having the worst Conservative defeat of all time in their history.
Well, I looked up, because I thought you might ask me about this, the opinion polls in March, April and the very beginning of May 1997 to see if we could learn anything from that. And it's very interesting. They consistently overstated the Labour lead. The Labour lead ended up being 13%, 13%, and so many of the polls had it at well over 20%. So I wouldn't entirely rely on polls, but equally I wouldn't dismiss them. If the Conservatives and Reform are very close, what does that tell you about dividing the Tory family? If you divide the Tory family, you make it worse for both parts, the in-laws and the outlaws, so to speak, and that what we need is a coalescence of the various parts of the Tory party family.
Okay, so recently Jacob Rees-Mogg appeared on GB News to talk about a new poll in which Reform has finally overtaken Conservatives by 1 point, up to the point where Nigel Farage is asking the BBC for him to be included, at the time of recording this video, in the BBC debate, as he is now the official opposition. Now, GB News is known to be quite submissive towards Reform. That's because Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, is a GB News presenter. Jacob Rees-Mogg dismissed these figures as fiddle faddle. I've never even heard that word before. He then suggested, akin to the Canadian parliamentary parties of a similar name, that they should consider joining forces or merging in totality. The reporter brought up a fresh poll stating how Farage's party is only 1 point behind the Conservatives. Now, while that's an interesting history lesson, let's get it back to the present, make sure that we are contextualising this properly. The reporter was talking about Reform UK, not Labour, and how they are nipping at the Conservatives' heels. There was no Reform UK back in 1997, so comparing today's situation completely misses the point entirely. Rees-Mogg then went on about how the Conservatives should be merging with Reform UK, a bit like how they did in 2019, because remember 2019 Boris Johnson was the one who was the populist figure, and in 2019 Nigel Farage made a pact with Boris Johnson, stepped back, pulled Brexit Party candidates out of plenty of seats, and that enabled the Conservatives to get an outright majority. That is not the case this time. Reform UK is fielding candidates in every single constituency, apart from the ones that have been deselected or not selected at all because of some Islamic racist remarks that they made. But he said that they should unite to avoid splitting the vote. The same kind of pact that they made in 2019, essentially. Many Reform UK members have stepped away from the Conservatives for the fact that they no longer believe in the Conservatism. We even had Lucy Allen back, a Reform candidate in her area. She then got suspended and had to quit the Tory party because she as a current Conservative member, not now, would rather have voted for a Reform candidate and endorsed the Reform candidate. And any last-minute pact that Farage makes with the Conservatives is likely to go down very well with the Farage supporters in total anyway. If they made a last-minute pact, it would disenfranchise any Farage voters from voting for Reform in the first place. Why would they vote Reform? I believe people would be interested for Nigel Farage to take over the Conservative Party and merge with the remnants of the Conservative Party after the UK general election this time round. I think a lot of people would be okay with that, and for Reform to become the official opposition. And I think that's possibly a way we are heading. I think many people would be okay with that. But for them to make a pact to not stand in Conservative seats, that would just disenfranchise Farage voters altogether. Farage built his platform on challenging the status quo. And right now, his party are eating into Conservative votes. Rees-Mogg can downplay the importance of these polls all he wants, but the real issue is Reform eating into their voter base. And with no signs of change in this dynamic, Rees-Mogg is starting to look scared about his seat being in jeopardy. I haven't seen any specific polls for his seat in Somerset, I believe it is. But if he was doing good in his own seat, I'm sure he'd be the first one to tell us. Instead, he's dodging the topic because he knows he's screwed and fucked, just like plenty of other Conservative members. They looked at the minute Farage stood for election, they were basically like, oh shit. Hey, new leader. I'm Jake. So, tell me what you think. Do you think that after the election, a Conservative Reform merger would look okay and would be acceptable to you? Do you think Reform should have stepped aside and let the Conservatives be unchallenged by them in every constituency and had a pact like they did in 2019? Let me know what you think. As always, I've been Jake from Just Jake. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching the video. And remember, make love, not war, because I will not be stepping aside for you. You actually made it to the end of the video. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, which, why haven't you already, is somewhere over there. And also, if you want to watch more videos, also check out over there. I've been Jake from Just Jake. See you later.